Welcome back, wonderful humans. I'm Danielle and I currently live alone and I'm trying to shift towards healthy meals whilst remaining on a budget. I say that, but on Saturday for lunch, I ended up going to the little dessert shop and I had a waffle with some white chocolate, some bits of pistachio, some kanafa, some strawberries, and a bit of ice cream. And I also had a blueberry muffin cold foam matcha. But then for dinner, I had some of the leftover frittata, had some sausage and some other bits in. This is what I made last week, and you might have seen it on my Friday bit of my last week's video if you watched that as well. If not, I'll leave the card up above in one of the corners. That was all I had for the Saturday. Then for Sunday, I didn't have any breakfast. It was another lazy start. And again, I just had a quarter of that frittata left. So I just finished that off before having a few afternoon snacks of some of the things that I got in one of my Haribo boxes a while ago. So I just had two of these little packs of super mix, which obviously having two of them is a bit excessive, but one didn't feel like quite enough. Then for my dinner, I just made a nice simple sandwich that has some fish fingers in, some cheese, and a bit of chili jam. Super gooey, super delicious. Obviously, not necessarily the most nutritious, but it hit the spot on one of those Sunday evenings where you're just thinking about having to work the next day. And then I had some drinks. I had some of this juice. It was one of the avocado, mango, apple, spinach kind of juices. Before on Monday, I actually made sure to have some breakfast. You'll be pleased. And I think I had breakfast nearly every day this week. I'm working the early shift all this week, but on Monday I decided to do the extra early shift. So I just had some toast before I started, which wasn't too bad. Kept me filled up all the way through until my lunch. So at least my lunch was at a more normal time. But I did just have some fridge raiders along with a few other bits and bobs as well. I couldn't decide which fridge raiders I wanted, and I knew that the date was getting close for them needing to be used up. So I had both. And I had some of the giant straws gone mini. Much prefer the big straws. The gone mini ones just didn't have the right texture for me personally. But then for Monday's dinner, I did make sure I found some time to do some slow cooked beef. I did this so I had it going throughout my day at work. I think I put it on around my lunchtime, so I didn't end up having a lot of lunch because by the time I'd prepared this, I didn't really have a lot of time. And I just had that with some brown rice as well. Then for Tuesday, again, I actually made sure that I did have some breakfast, but it wasn't anything fancy again because I didn't have time to do that. So I just had some more toast with some more margarine on top. Again, kept me going all the way through until I sort of had a bit more time to actually grab a morning snack. And even then, it was just finishing off this dried mango. I'd been having the odd piece of this here and there the last few weeks, so I just decided to finish off that last portion. So it took me through to my lunchtime, where I just had some cashew nuts and some Haribo Star Mix. So pretty high in calories for what it is, but I just wasn't feeling super hungry. I knew I wanted to eat something. And then for dinner, I just had the rest of that stew. I had great intentions for my leftover stew mix, actually. I intended to make a pie, pastry, and put it on top, but I just didn't have the time or the energy. And then for Wednesday, again, I managed to have some breakfast. See, 3 days in a row. I'm improving. But I got up super early and I made myself some corned beef, onion, and potato hash. When I say super early, I mean I was doing this at 7:15 in the morning before I started my shift at 8 o'clock. But it definitely kept me full and gave me a lot of energy for the day as well. But then I did have some morning snacks. I wanted to get a bit more protein in. So I just had some chopped up pieces of chicken. I think this was about an 80-gram portion of the chicken that I had. And then I had some lunch of a sandwich. It was a sort of a ploughman's, I suppose. Had some salad leaves in there, some cheese, and some Branston pickle, some of the small chunk Branston. Then for dinner, I made myself a smoked haddock and leek risotto. I avoided putting any cheese in there or anything like that. I quite often do put cheese in there, but figured that would be a bit excessive. And with the flavour combination, didn't think it'd necessarily make a huge amount of sense. But then for Thursday, I still managed to have breakfast, so we're still continuing on with a good trend. But I did just have some of that leftover corned beef hash. Just blasted it in the microwave for a few minutes, and I didn't bother to take it out of the Tupperware that I'd heated it through him because I didn't really want to have to create more washing up for myself later on in the day. Then for some more morning snacks of, again, some more of that chicken. I get 3 portions worth in the pack of chicken that I purchased. But then I also had some of these Pontefract cakes. It's only 5 to a portion, so I made sure to just stick to the portion amount. But then for my lunch, I had some Weetabix and there was some milk in there, but obviously most of it was absorbed. And I just put it with some banana as well, just to try get in a bit of fibre and have something a little bit different for my lunch. Then for dinner, I made myself a pork coconut and peanut butter along with some broccoli curry and then with some coconut rice on the side as well. This curry actually only needed 5 different ingredients, so it was a super friendly thing to do as part of a midweek dinner. And then for Friday, my breakfast was definitely a lot more simple and a lot lighter as well because I am, as always, by a Friday, incredibly short on energy. So I just had a banana. And as you can see, this banana starting to turn, which is what's new. What's new there? Because if you've watched my videos for a while, you'll always see I'm complaining about my bananas starting to go brown before I eat them. And then for my morning snacks, I did just finish off the rest of that chicken that I mentioned here. It's actually not too bad. It obviously has a pretty high amount of salt in, but otherwise, it is pretty much just chicken. Then for my lunch, I finished off the rest of that curry. I forgot to film the footage of it, but it was just popped into a glass Tupperware and reheated. So it wouldn't have been anything fancy for you to have taken a look at anyway. But it was super delicious as well as leftovers. I certainly made a good choice there. And at some point in the future, I'll definitely do it again. And for my afternoon snacks, I then just had some more of that licorice, again sticking to that 5 pieces of Pontefract cake portion that I had, and I tend to get mine from Haribo. Before dinner, using up the rest of the corned beef to smush it down onto a mini tortilla, put it into a pan with some cheese, some barbecue sauce, tomatoes, and spring onions. And in the end, I was able to actually fold them sort of in half like you would a tortilla. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. And of course, you can always join in any of the conversations below. Thanks for watching.